So, pardon me. So you may have already seen my short about this. And as I said in that short, take this with very, very much a grain of salt. Like I say, this is coming from the Daily Mail. So this is entirely unreliable, but maybe there's, a grain of truth in here somewhere about what their plans are going to be. And bear in mind at the moment, remember, cast your minds back. Rishi Sunak brought in after what had been the disaster of Liz Truss, meant to re-steady the ship, re-correct course, save the Conservative Party in the UK from the disaster that was Liz Truss, and essentially reassure voters that, the ship is now back on course. But of course, he's failed in all this. His 5 promises haven't been overly that fulfilled, and only the one of the promise to lower inflation. He didn't actually do anything to lower inflation, as we've said before. He and Jeremy Hunt just hid under a desk and just hoped that Mr. Inflation would go away. Of course, we are still suffering from a very significant inflation. It is causing a lot of problems, especially why you are seeing a lot of councils having a lot of monetary problems at the moment because of that inflation. And now you look at the situation of where you've got a leader who's failed, you are monumentally behind in the polls consistently. You've done a budget which, once again, has not shifted the needle as we said it wouldn't. So what are you left to do? Well, you just say screw it and risk it all on a general election, which Rishi Sunak appears not to have done that, and is literally going to be hanging on by his fingernails in the vain hope that maybe something changes, although who knows exactly what that will be. And of course, remember, it would not be the first time we have obviously heard or seen rumors that Rishi is immediately about to be replaced. Like I say, remember, not that too long ago, he had to go before the backbenchers of the 1922 committee, and I think convinced them that he was worth keeping on. So we're going to go through this, but do remember this is from the Daily Mail. Take this very, very skeptically, and we'll discuss some of the things that they say in this article as well, because some of this stuff they are saying, I'm not convinced about, shall we say, this plot, shall we say, following through. But before we do go on to that, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there's the link to Patreon page, the One Off Nation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can all buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, there's a Pony Club down below as well. So, as always, thank you very much, everyone who does help and support the channel. So, over we go on into this. So, exclusive from the Daily Mail, plot to crown Penny Mordaunt as PM. Tory MPs on the right have held secret talks with moderates about replacing Rishi Sunak with the leader of the House. So, MPs on the right of the party have held talks with moderates about uniting behind Penny Mordaunt to replace Rishi Sunak. Bear in mind, I think they know and they realize that they cannot afford what would be a very, very messy leadership election. That if there is to be a new leader, then it has to be exactly what happened with Rishi Sunak, that all the MPs unanimously agree it is this person. We are not going to go to the membership, which, bear in mind, the membership was incredibly annoyed that that question did not go to them about Rishi Sunak. Ultimately, this is going to heavily, heavily annoy the Conservative leadership again. And of course, she will come under huge pressure by the general public again to have a general election. The fact that we've had so many Conservative leaders now come through here and obviously be made Prime Minister, it's a joke at this point. Just have a general election already. So, continues. Sources say that the discussions were held this week about possibly crowning Miss Mordaunt as the new leader in a coronation if Prime Minister now faces a confidence vote in the coming weeks. So, okay, this could mean maybe, and again, like I've said, take everything you see here with very much a grain of salt, because it's not the first time we have seen stuff like this. There could be a confidence vote in the coming weeks. Could be, might be, maybe. We'll see what happens. Maybe we get 3 months out, nothing's happened. That is very likely to happen as well. I can say it's not the first time we've seen these types of articles. So this move would mean that it would be an astonishing third change of MPs since the last election, but it would also avoid the need for another divisive leadership contest, which is what they want to try and avoid. Mordaunt has been identified as a possible standard bearer for the Tory moderates, and a future contest in which right-wingers such as Kimi Badenoch and Suella Braverman would star as favourites. Until now, MPs on the right of the party have opposed her because of her, quote, woke views on gender issues. Here's the thing. I do not see Badenoch playing ball with this, because she is ambitious. She wants the leadership. Now, will she allow Mordaunt to be crowned? If this happens, if this plot turns out to be true and that happens, maybe she does. Maybe that she would rather be a leader in opposition. That's always a potential. Suella Braverman, on the other hand, I don't know if she would challenge Mordaunt in something like this. But then this is the other one that makes me believe this is a non-starter. But a source involved with the rebels has said that a deal was emerging in which they could support her provided she subcontracts the issue to them. What does this mean, this issue, this subcontracting? Bear in mind, the Tory moderates and the Tory right do not see eye to eye on a lot of issues. So are they trying to say, well, look, you can be PM, but we want these issues dealing with? And it's like, what are these issues going to be dealing with? And I'll tell you now, the right and the moderates do not agree. They do not get along with each other. This is where I am very, very skeptical. And what makes me think of these things, that this is a non-starter, that this is just yet another red herring in an attempt to dethrone Rishi Sunak, maybe, or who knows. So, the mood has shifted a long way this week, the source has said, and there is a feeling that we cannot go on as we are, and that even Penny would do better. She would have to allow a social policy to be set by others, but if you go over that a hurdle, you could see the right prepared to swing behind her. It is the only way to get rid of Rishi and avoid a contest. So they're saying, look, you can't sort social policy. And again, it would be, what would the right want to do in that area of social policy, which are once again very worrying. And of course, I think the more moderate Tory MPs would have a lot to say about that. So while this deal, so we say, maybe appeases the right, what about all those moderates? I don't know. This is where, once again, I'm very, very skeptical about these sources, but we'll see. So a former minister of this moderate wing of the party also suggests that replacing Mr. Sunak has become much more likely, and that Miss Mordaunt was the only candidate of the party who could unite around everyone without contest. Again, we'll see if that happens. So the source said, until very recently, I thought the idea of changing leader again was ridiculous. But Number 10's handling of some recent events has been absolutely astonishingly bad, and I think it is becoming much more likely to happen. You could have another contest and see only the possible candidate I can see people uniting behind is Penny. Even if you do this, the public outcry and the backlash against this, like the public will demand a general election at this point. If you change leader again, there will be a demand to immediately call a general election. The public has seen multiple leaders change, no general election offered. There should be one called by now, but as again, still no date for a potential general election. Mordaunt will be put under huge pressure to do this. Like all the opposition will have an absolute field day if this happens. So the plot echoes the 2003 when the Tory MPs removed Ian Duncan Smith as leader and replaced him with Michael Howard in a so-called coronation because they feared electoral meltdown. Miss Mordaunt was narrowly missed out in the contest to succeed Boris Johnson in 2022 when concerns among Tory MPs about her views on trans rights saw her squeezed out of the final race between Sunak and Liz Truss. It wasn't because of that. Let's face it, she would have never have gotten to the final three. It was always going to be a Sunak Truss, contest. Sorry, that was always going to be the case. I don't think her views really shifted the needle on that destiny. That she would have been the one instead of Liz Truss. It should have been her type of thing, which some of the Mordaunt supporters have crowed about in the past. But now she's boosted her national profile after showing a sterling performance in the coronation, where she wielded an 8-pound sword of state. The Tory poll of voters last month identified her as the only candidate able to boost the party's chances of winning an election. I don't see how she does, honestly. I do not see how she somehow manages to turn this around compared to Sunak. Like I say, what on earth is she going to offer that Rishi Sunak can't? I do not see those chances improving, but there you go. The respondent said that Mordaunt had a better chance of being the PM and beating Keir Starmer by a net margin of +7 points, compared with a -20 for Miss Badenoch, and of course -27 for Miss Braverman. I don't think so. I think as soon as she gets in, I think she will find it incredibly difficult. Like I say, what she got to offer? She's got nothing. She's not proposing any new ideas or anything like that. The idea that somehow I think she can come in once again and save the Tories, bear in mind, wind your minds back to a year ago. This is the very thing they were saying about Rishi Sunak. So the prospect of a deal between the moderates and the right will send shockwaves through Number 10. And again, I don't know. They do not see eye to eye on this. I think even again, the idea, no, they do not see eye to eye on this. They do not agree. I don't think so. Again, I think this is very, very much pie in the sky thinking. But again, we'll see if this happens. So they are currently reeling from a week which has been dominated by rows of racist comments by a Tory donor, and of course the defection of the former deputy chairman Lee Anderson to Reform. Sunak is planning to switch his focus back to the economy next week as he tries to convince his very resentive MPs that they can still win the next election, despite polls showing a huge Labour lead. The PM is planning a series of announcements on business and apprenticeships in the bid to try and move on from a very bruising week. And again, I don't see how he moves on from this and how he changes even any of this. So he will also have to brace for a very high-profile clash with peers over his flagship Rwanda legislation, which ministers do hope to try and push through Parliament before Easter. Again, we've said before, the Rwanda legislation very much not likely to go through the House of Lords. They have amended it. It's not what the MPs, what at least the right of the MPs want. It can and still will be challenged in a court of law. It does nothing really to solve the problem of immigration. We've talked, I don't know, we've talked the horse to death about the Rwanda legislation, how much that's not going to work. Like I say, we're not going to go into all that here right now. But on Thursday night, Sunak obviously formally moved to rule out a May the 2nd election after being warned by Tory MPs that it would be a kamikaze mission. And he's bottled it. He's absolutely bottled it. This is why you've got the moniker now, Chicken Rishi. I think that should become the new thing now. And I think that if just as Tories started calling Gordon Brown Bottler Brown, you should absolutely start calling him Chicken Rishi until he calls an election day. But yesterday it appears to have done very little to actually boost morale of the Conservative MPs, dismayed by a failure of the budget to actually make an impact on the opinion polls. Again, we said it wouldn't do anything, but hey, there you go. The whole situation is just totally depressing, said one MP. Until last week, we could at least cling to the hope that the budget would shift the dial, but that hasn't even caused a flicker. Instead, we've had another week of infighting, and the next thing on the horizon is the local elections, in which is going to be dire. One source connected to the rebels said it has been a very vibe shift among MPs, from the mood going from resigned to actively angry, following the very botched handling of the row of the racist comments of leading Tory donor Frank Hester. An ally of the PM acknowledged that over the past week it had not been easy, but stressed that the government was still trying to deal with the fallout from the pandemic. Again, all this time, still trying to deal with the fallout of the pandemic and, of course, the war in Ukraine. Strategists believe that the green shoots of recovery in the economic model, coupled with significant tax cuts, will gradually feed through into a more benign environment for the party. Again, this is the exact same thing they said last year, that this is what was going to happen with Rishi Sunak, that he was going to come in, that all this be amazing recovery, and oh my God, look how fantastic it would be. Here we are, almost a year on, still not happened, but yeah, I am very skeptical. I am very skeptical about that. Yeah, you've got sources like this, but yes, it's not unusual to hear grumblings and things like this. But an alliance between the Tory right and the moderates, don't think so. Don't think so. Unless it does happen, then okay, I'm prepared to be wrong on that. But I will tell you now, this is two groups of people who do not see eye to eye with each other. And the other thing as well is, well, okay, well, you put Penny Mordaunt in. What is she going to do to turn the ship around? I can't see what she actually does. What does she bring to the table that Rishi Sunak doesn't? This is why they are so desperate. And you can see the desperation. Even now, they're thinking, "Oh, if we change leader, maybe we might be all right." No, I don't see this happening. I really do not see this happening. Because even if you do change leader, first of all, the public reaction out of this is going to be absolutely angry. And if Mordaunt does not immediately call for a general election, the oppositions are going to have an absolute field day. An absolute field day. Like her first PMQs, Starmer and co are going to off some absolute zingers, Here's Penny Mordaunt now having to carry the whole weight of the Tory party. And she can't even carry the weight of having to call a general election. Strong enough to carry a sword, but not enough to call a general election. So many things you can just come up with off the back of that. It's going to be bad for them if they do decide to do that and they do change and they don't go for a general election. And I've said before, what does she bring? Honestly, down below in the comments, can anyone name anything that she can bring to the table that Sunak currently isn't bringing? Because I fail to see why she is like suddenly the lifeline of the party. When, bear in mind, a year ago, they were seeing the exact same things said about Rishi Sunak. So, but it's just sheer desperation. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.